For as long as we remember, we have told the story of human progress as a straight line, from caves to cities, from fire to technology, from ignorance to knowledge. But what if history does not move forward? What if it turns like the hands of a clock older than civilization itself, made not of metal or gears, but of oceans, fire, ice, and time? Throughout the ages, Earth has pulsed, rising and falling in cycles of destruction and renewal. Every few thousand years, the balance breaks. Glaciers melt, continents shift, fire rains from the sky, and everything humanity has built is swallowed by silence. When the storm passes, the survivors awaken into a new dawn, believing they are the first to walk the world. But they are not the first. They are only the latest. Ancient myths have always hinted at this rhythm, a pattern our ancestors once knew by heart. In the East, it was the Yuga cycle, a cosmic wheel turning through ages of gold, silver, bronze, and iron, each one ending in chaos before beginning anew. In Mesoamerica, it was the 5 suns, 5 worlds destroyed and reborn, each by a different force: flood, flame, wind, or darkness. In Sumer, it was written as the descent of kingship from heaven, each age ruled by beings of impossible lifespans until a single phrase ended it all. Then the flood swept over. Different tongues, same story. The world is born. The world dies. The world is born again. In recent decades, a few voices have dared to suggest that these ancient stories were not allegories, but memories, fragments of a truth long buried beneath the ice. Among them, Randall Carlson, a geologist and geomorphologist, has mapped the scars of cataclysm across continents. The scablands of Washington, carved not by slow erosion, but by floods of unimaginable force. The fields of boulders in Canada and Montana, scattered by torrents that once moved faster than hurricanes. His analysis points to a global event around 12,800 years ago, a sudden, violent interruption in the Earth's calm, marking the boundary between 2 worlds. Graham Hancock, the writer and researcher who followed this trail, argues that this cataclysm, now known as the Younger Dryas impact event, was not just geological, but civilizational. In his works, Magicians of the Gods and Ancient Apocalypse, Hancock suggests that an advanced culture, existing before the flood, was erased almost overnight when fragments of a comet struck the northern ice sheets. The impact unleashed firestorms, floods, and 1,000 years of cold. It was, he argues, the last Great Reset, a real event remembered as the Great Flood in every culture that followed. Mainstream science once resisted these claims, but now ice cores, ocean sediments, and layers rich in platinum, iridium, and nanodiamonds have confirmed that something extraordinary did occur. Beneath the Greenland ice sheet, a 20-mile-wide crater bears silent testimony to a cosmic collision. Across North America, a thin black mat of soot marks a continent on fire. The radiocarbon record shows a sudden drop in global temperature, the Earth's climate crashing almost instantly into a new ice age. If Carlson's evidence is the geology and Hancock's work the story, then together they sketch a haunting image. A planet that resets itself every 12,000 years, each cycle ending in cataclysm and beginning anew in silence. Modern science, in its own language, has begun to sense this rhythm too. Geologists see it in the layers of stone, thin dark bands that mark sudden destruction every 12,000 years. Astrophysicists trace it in the movement of the sun through waves of interstellar dust and energy. Even climate records pulse with a strange heartbeat, repeating through deep time. It is as if the Earth itself keeps time, and we have simply forgotten how to listen. The ancients may have known what modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Carlson calls it Earth's catastrophic clock, a natural cycle of upheaval governed by cosmic mechanics, orbital shifts, solar outbursts, and cometary debris. Hancock calls it the memory of the flood, a recurring pattern so powerful that it shaped the myths, calendars, and monuments of the ancient world. To both, the warning is clear. The past was not primitive, it was erased. There are whispers that our ancestors tried to warn us, that they built calendars aligned to the stars, monuments that mark the rising of forgotten suns, and myths encoded with numbers. 12,000 years, 26,000 years, cycles within cycles. Perhaps they did not fear the end itself, but the forgetting, because when we forget the rhythm of the world, we are caught unprepared when it begins again. Maybe this is why so many ancient monuments point toward the same stars, why pyramids, temples, and stone circles seem to count something greater than days or seasons. Perhaps they were watching the same thing we have ignored, the slow ticking of Earth's forgotten clock. They may have known that everything, every empire, every sea, every life belongs to the same eternal breath. Tonight we begin to follow that truth. We will trace the scars of cataclysm carved into stone, read the myths that survived the flames, and listen for the pulse beneath it all, the heartbeat of a planet that remembers more than we dare to imagine. Because somewhere beneath our feet, beneath our history and our noise, the Earth still keeps its time, and the hand of that ancient clock may be about to move once more. The question is not whether the cycle will turn again, but whether we will remember it when it does. Beneath our feet lies the oldest memory of the planet, an archive that needs no ink, no language, and no library. The Earth remembers everything, every flood, every fire, every season of ice that has come and gone. Each layer of rock, each band of sediment is a page in the great diary of time. When we dig into the ground, we are not just mining resources, we are opening the chapters of forgotten ages written in stone. To an untrained eye, a rock is only a rock, but to those who listen, it speaks. Within sandstone, shale, and ice lie thin dark lines, delicate as the wrinkles of an ancient face, marking events of unimaginable power. Across continents, scientists have found recurring black layers rich in soot and iridium, an element rare on Earth but abundant in meteorites. They call them black mats. These layers appear at eerily regular intervals, about 12,000 years apart, as if the Earth itself inhales and exhales between life and destruction. In Greenland, deep ice cores preserve dust from a time when the sky burned. Traces of platinum embedded in the ice reveal a massive cosmic impact during the period scientists call the Younger Dryas, around 12,800 years ago. Across North America, millions of tiny glass spheres, known as microtectites, were discovered, formed when the planet's surface melted in an instant. In Spanish caves, pollen grains turned to charcoal, evidence of global wildfires. And in the frozen tundra of Siberia, mammoths were found locked in permafrost with undigested flowers still in their mouths, frozen mid-breath, caught by a catastrophe so sudden it defies imagination. The story is consistent. Fire from the heavens, followed by ice. A wave of heat and radiation scorched the planet, then darkness and cold gripped the world for centuries. The Younger Dryas winter lasted more than 1,000 years, and when it ended, the ice melted with astonishing speed. Sea levels rose by hundreds of feet. Rivers shifted, deltas vanished, and coastlines changed shape. Humanity emerged into a warmer world, a reset Earth, cleansed and reshaped. But this pattern is not unique. As scientists read deeper into the geological record, they find the same pulse repeating across time. Every 12,000 to 13,000 years, something triggers a global shift: sudden cooling, intense volcanism, floods, extinctions, or reversals of the magnetic poles. At 24,000 years, at 36,000 years, at 50,000, the layers tell the same story. The intervals are too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. It is as though the planet moves to the rhythm of an unseen metronome, a clock whose hands turn in millennia instead of minutes. Some of these cycles align with predictable cosmic mechanics. The tilt of Earth's axis, its wobble known as precession, and its orbital variations, collectively called the Milankovitch cycles, alter how sunlight falls across the planet, controlling the ages of ice and warmth. But other changes come too fast, too violent, as if an external force flips a hidden switch. Magnetic reversals, supersolar storms, and encounters with dense interstellar dust clouds could all act as triggers, pushing the planet from stability into chaos. In layers of magnetic rock, geologists have found evidence that Earth's magnetic field has reversed hundreds of times. When this happens, the shield that protects us from solar radiation weakens dramatically, leaving the surface exposed to charged particles and cosmic rays. In the past few centuries, scientists have recorded a sharp decline in field strength. The North Magnetic Pole, once drifting slowly, now races across the Arctic at more than 40 kilometers per year, 10 times faster than before. It is a subtle but undeniable tremor in the gears of the planet's magnetic clock. Biological records echo the same rhythm. Roughly every 12,000 to 13,000 years, there is a wave of mass extinction. The end of the Pleistocene erased mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant sloths. Earlier cycles took coral reefs, forests, and marine species. Evolution, it seems, does not move smoothly, but leaps forward after each reset. Each pulse clears the board, forcing life to start over, shaping the future from the ashes of the past. Even the continents appear to respond. Tectonic activity, the shifting of Earth's plates, accelerates after great cataclysms, as though the crust softens under pressure and reshapes itself. Mountains rise, oceans spread, volcanoes awaken. Glaciers melt and pour into the seas, drowning lowlands and reshaping coastlines. What was land becomes ocean. What was mountain becomes island. Every cycle redraws the map of the world. Perhaps that is why beneath the waves we find the ruins of impossible structures, the sunken terraces of Yonaguni in Japan, geometric foundations off the coast of Cuba, and strange concentric formations near Egypt's desert edge. They seem to belong to earlier worlds, cities claimed by the last great flood when the ice melted and the sea rose to reclaim forgotten lands. If civilizations existed before ours, their stories now sleep beneath the silt and coral, erased by the tides of time. The Earth's memory, however, is not only a record of destruction, it is also a record of renewal. After each extinction, forests return, rivers carve new paths, and species adapt. Life begins again, as it always has. The planet does not fear death, it depends on it. Every cataclysm is both an ending and an act of creation, a cleansing breath before the next awakening. Today, we read these memories with machines instead of myths, satellite imaging, isotope analysis, radiocarbon dating, and paleomagnetic mapping. The language of the Earth is complex, but it is legible. We are learning to translate what it has been saying for ages, that every cycle, every pulse, every collapse follows a pattern. The planet keeps time, even when we forget how to count it. Each black layer in the ground is a page of warning. Each shift in the magnetic field is a heartbeat. Each sudden extinction is a reminder that nothing lasts forever. Not species, not empires, not even oceans. The geological record does not predict the future. It simply shows us that there will be another turning of the wheel. Somewhere in the depths of time, the next cycle is already building. Heat beneath the crust, fire in the sky, ice waiting in the shadows. The clock does not stop. It never has. And when it strikes again, as it always does, the Earth will begin another chapter in its endless story of destruction and rebirth. The only question that remains is whether humanity will endure long enough to remember this time, or whether we too will be reduced to another thin black line in the memory of the earth. Every civilization carries a memory of water, a flood that came without warning, a wall of sea and silence that swallowed everything known. It does not matter where the story is told. In the deserts of Sumer, in the mountains of Peru, in the temples of India, or the jungles of the Maya. Everywhere, the same myth repeats: the world drowned, and only a handful survived to begin again. For centuries, scholars called these stories metaphors, symbols of moral cleansing or divine wrath. But the deeper we dig, the more we find that the memory of a great flood is written not just in legend, but in the earth itself. Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age was ending, something unimaginable happened. Temperatures spiked in a geological instant. Glaciers that had covered continents began to collapse. The oceans rose hundreds of feet. Rivers turned violent. Continents trembled. What followed was not a single flood, but a series of deluges, waves of destruction that erased entire worlds. In the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica, scientists have found a sharp boundary marking this transformation. Within just a few decades, average temperatures soared by 7 degrees. That kind of warming cannot be explained by slow natural drift. It was sudden, explosive, the mark of a cataclysm. Across North America, meltwater from retreating glaciers poured into the oceans, carving canyons and gouging out river systems like the Scablands of Washington and the St. Lawrence Basin. The sea level rose so quickly that ancient coastlines vanished beneath the waves. For early humans, the world must have seemed to unravel overnight. Whole valleys became seas. Mountains turned into islands. The animals they hunted disappeared. Fires and storms swept the sky. When the survivors finally found safety on higher ground, they carried with them the memory of that terror, a story they would tell for thousands of years. In Mesopotamia, that story became the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest written works in human history. It tells of a man named Utnapishtim who was warned by the gods to build a great boat before a divine flood swept over the earth. When the waters receded, his vessel came to rest upon a mountain, and he released birds to find land. The details are unmistakably echoed in later tales. The Hebrew Noah, the Greek Deucalion, the Hindu Manu. Different names, same truth. The world drowned, and the survivors were reborn into silence. But what was this flood really? Modern geology points to a chain reaction at the end of the Younger Dryas. A comet impact or series of airbursts shattered ice sheets across the northern hemisphere. As the ice melted, billions of tons of fresh water poured into the oceans, destabilizing global currents and triggering superstorms. The weight of water shifted the crust itself, fracturing coastlines and lifting new islands from the sea. Imagine an ocean rushing across continents, carrying forests, animals, and cities with it. To those who witnessed it, it must have looked like the gods themselves had overturned the sky. Even today, traces of that event remain. Beneath the Black Sea, marine geologists discovered the remnants of an ancient shoreline more than 100 meters below the surface. Proof that what is now ocean was once fertile land, flooded around 7,600 BCE. Off the coasts of India and Japan, sonar has revealed submerged ruins, stone streets, and temples lying silent beneath the waves. Near the Bahamas, the Bimini Road stretches across the sea floor. Massive limestone blocks aligned too neatly to be natural. They are all whispers of the same thing. There were civilizations before the flood, and the sea took them. The sediment cores drawn from the Gulf of Mexico tell a similar story. A distinct layer of charcoal and clay marks an enormous firestorm followed by rapid flooding. It is the fingerprint of an event so vast it could have been seen from every horizon. In the fossil record, species vanish between one layer and the next. Mammoths, mastodons, giant bison, saber-toothed cats. It was a biological reset. Life began again from what little remained. Human memory preserved what science is only now confirming. The flood myths may not have been metaphors at all. They were eyewitness accounts of the last global cataclysm, encoded, retold, and mythologized so that those who came after would never forget. The Sumerians wrote of a flood sent by the gods to cleanse the earth. The Maya spoke of 4 previous worlds destroyed by water and fire. The Egyptians told of Zep Tepi, the first time, when the Nile rose and drowned the land. In every version, the same warning lingers. Civilizations rise, and then the waters come. And yet, not everything was lost. As the oceans swallowed their cities, survivors carried fragments of knowledge, astronomy, agriculture, geometry, across the new world. They became the seed of the next civilization. In this sense, the flood was not just an ending, but a transmission, a bridge between worlds. It purified the past so that something new could emerge. Some researchers now see evidence that this final cataclysm also altered Earth's magnetic field. The sudden meltwater surge and shifting mass could have destabilized the planet's rotation, tilting its axis and perhaps contributing to the pole migrations we see today. Even the legends echo this. Stories of the sky tilting, of the sun rising where it once set. In every culture, the world after the flood is described as different. The constellations changed, the climate unfamiliar, the old gods silent. It was, quite literally, a new Earth. Standing on the edge of that transformation, imagine what it must have felt like, to see the horizon swallowed by a moving wall of water, to hear the roar of an ocean rushing toward you, to realize that everything you knew, every home, every name, would be gone by dawn. And yet, from that silence, humanity began again. The survivors looked up at the stars, rebuilt fires on new shores, and carried the old myths forward, not to glorify their gods, but to remember what happens when the cycle turns. The flood was not just an ancient story. It was the last great tick of the Earth's forgotten clock. The moment when the old world ended, and the memory of that ending became our first true history. We call it myth because we do not wish to remember how fragile we are, but the rocks, the ice, and the sea still hold the truth. The waters came, and they will come again. Long before telescopes or satellites, humans looked up at the night sky and felt both awe and fear. They saw the heavens not as a backdrop, but as a living force, beautiful, unpredictable, and at times deadly. For every dawn that brought warmth and harvest, there came nights when the sky seemed to burn, a streak of fire, a sudden flash, a rain of light that fell to earth and left nothing the same. Across time and language, the memory of that terror was given a single name: fire from the sky. It was the one element no civilization could defend against. Fire from below, from volcanoes or lightning, could be endured. But when the heavens themselves opened, when stars fell and the air turned to flame, the world ended. Even now, myths whisper of that moment. The Aztecs spoke of the sun that burned the world. In ancient Egypt, the god Sekhmet sent fire from heaven to cleanse humanity. The Hopi told of the sky serpent that brought destruction before renewal. And in the oldest Sumerian tablets, there are cryptic lines describing a day when flames devoured the plains and stones of heaven fell like rain. Modern science has uncovered what those stories remembered. Earth is not adrift in an empty void. It travels through fields of debris, cosmic dust, and ancient rivers of rock left behind by comets. Our planet orbits not in isolation, but through the remnants of its own celestial history. Every few thousand years, it crosses dense streams of meteoric fragments, invisible until one enters the atmosphere and the sky catches fire. These are not the gentle streaks of shooting stars we see on calm summer nights. These are cataclysmic showers, each fragment moving faster than a bullet, each one carrying the power of 1,000 bombs. The evidence of these encounters lies hidden in stone and ice. Across the North American continent, scientists have found a thin layer of soot and nanodiamonds, tiny crystallized remnants formed only under immense pressure and heat. This layer, dated precisely to 12,800 years ago, coincides with the beginning of the Younger Dryas and the sudden extinction of Ice Age megafauna. In that same layer are microscopic spherules of molten glass, fragments of a moment when the atmosphere itself burned. For decades, skeptics dismissed the idea of a cosmic impact, yet the pattern was unmistakable. The firestorms, the melt glass, the black mats, the global cooling. It was the signature of an interplanetary event, one so massive it changed the course of Earth's history. One fragment is believed to have struck over what is now Greenland, leaving behind a crater nearly 20 miles wide beneath a sheet of ice. Another, perhaps larger, exploded in the atmosphere, igniting continents and vaporizing forests. The blast would have been thousands of times more powerful than any modern weapon, releasing enough energy to set half the world ablaze. Shockwaves circled the globe. Winds roared faster than hurricanes. For weeks the sky glowed red with smoke and dust. Sunlight dimmed. The stars disappeared. And then came the long winter, 1,000 years of cold and silence. The Earth, it seems, has passed through this fire many times. Geological records reveal impact layers not just from 12,800 years ago, but from 26,000, 38,000 and beyond, all separated by roughly the same interval. These are the scars of repeated encounters, as if the planet drifts through a cosmic firing range on a predictable schedule. Some astronomers believe these events are tied to the orbit of a vast unseen comet, a long-period visitor that periodically fragments as it nears the Sun, scattering destruction through the inner solar system. Others propose that the solar system itself oscillates through the galactic plane every 12,000 years, disturbing clouds of ancient debris that rain down upon Earth. Whatever the cause, the pattern remains. The heavens have always had their own clock, and the Earth moves in time with it. Throughout the ages, humans have watched the sky for signs of this clock turning. The ancients did not fear the stars. They studied them. They tracked the cycles of comets, the precession of constellations, the rhythm of the planets. The Great Pyramid of Giza aligns perfectly with Orion's belt and the pole star of its era, as if to mark a celestial rhythm rather than a mortal one. The builders of Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe positioned their monuments towards specific rising stars, perhaps to remember the day when the sky fell. To them, the heavens were not distant or benign. They were alive, and when they shifted, the Earth shifted with them. In the traditions of many cultures, the destroyer from the sky was not only a comet or meteor, it was personified. The Sumerians called it Nibiru, the star of crossing. The Egyptians spoke of the Eye of Ra that sent fire to purify the earth. In Hindu texts, it was the weapon of the god Shiva, the celestial flame that dissolves one world so another can begin. Even the Bible echoes this cosmic memory. Fire and brimstone raining from heaven, the sky rolling back like a scroll, and a new heaven and a new earth emerging afterward. These are not coincidences of imagination. They are the ways our ancestors tried to describe what they had seen. An encounter so immense it seared itself into human memory. Across tens of millennia, through oral tradition and sacred text, they passed down the same warning. The cycle will turn again, and when it does, it will come not from the sea, but from the stars. Today, we look up with instruments instead of myths. We map the orbits of near-Earth asteroids, catalogue comets, and simulate impact probabilities. We know statistically that impacts like the one at the end of the Ice Age are rare, but not impossible. We know that small fireballs strike the atmosphere every day harmlessly. And we know, with quiet unease, that space holds far larger travellers we have not yet seen. The sky, for all our science, remains full of mystery. If there is a cosmic pattern to catastrophe, we may already be within its next approach. Dust density in the solar system is increasing. Meteor showers are intensifying. The sun, too, is entering a more active phase. The same signs that once terrified ancient skywatchers now appear again, this time measured not by priests, but by satellites. Yet whether we explain it with myth or with mathematics, the truth does not change. The heavens and the earth move together in rhythm, and when the fire returns, it will not ask permission. The ancients called it the purifying flame, the breath of the gods. But to the planet, it is simply another beat in its eternal cycle. Fire descends, life falters, silence follows, and then, once again, the earth begins to breathe. Invisible, silent, and ever-present, the Earth's magnetic field surrounds us like an unseen ocean. It guides compasses, shields life from solar radiation, and holds back the chaos of space. Yet this invisible guardian is not eternal. It flickers, weakens, and at times reverses completely. When it does, the consequences echo across the planet. From shifting skies to dying species, the magnetic field is the planet's pulse. And through its long history, that pulse has faltered many times. Every child learns that a compass points north, but few realize that north itself is not fixed. Over the past century, the North Magnetic Pole has wandered thousands of kilometers, from the Canadian Arctic towards Siberia, moving faster now than at any point in recorded history. What was once a slow drift has become a sprint over 40 kilometers a year. Scientists have watched with unease as magnetic strength declines by nearly 10% each century. Something deep beneath our feet is changing. The source of the field lies far below, in the planet's molten heart. There, 3,000 kilometers beneath the surface, iron and nickel swirl in a convective dance, a liquid dynamo generating the electromagnetic shell that protects the biosphere. But this dynamo is chaotic. The currents twist, fold, and shift direction, creating ripples that rise through the mantle and alter the strength of the field above. When the chaos becomes too great, the entire system flips. North becomes south, south becomes north. This is the phenomenon scientists call geomagnetic reversal. It has happened hundreds of times in Earth's history, most recently about 780,000 years ago, during what geologists call the Brunhes-Matuyama reversal. Yet evidence from lava flows, ocean sediments, and magnetic minerals shows that the process is neither slow nor gentle. In some regions, polarity changes occurred within decades, perhaps even within a single human lifetime. Imagine the confusion of ancient skywatchers if compasses had existed then, the needle spinning aimlessly, the auroras erupting near the equator, the sky glowing strange colours as the magnetic shield faltered. When the field weakens, solar and cosmic radiation bombard the atmosphere. Ozone thins. Electrical storms intensify. Satellite data and ice core isotopes suggest that these periods coincide with spikes in mutation rates, extinction events, and climatic upheavals. It is as though every reversal acts as a cleansing reset, disrupting fragile systems and forcing new adaptations to emerge. The magnetic clock, like all others in Earth's grand mechanism, keeps its own rhythm of destruction and renewal. Some scientists believe that we are now entering another such phase. The region of low magnetism known as the South Atlantic anomaly has been expanding rapidly, stretching from South America to Africa. Satellites passing overhead experience malfunctions as radiation seeps through the weakened shield. At the same time, measurements show that the global field has dropped in intensity by nearly 20% since the 19th century, a pattern that historically precedes full reversal. While no one can predict when it will happen, the pace of change is accelerating. For ancient cultures, these invisible shifts were experienced through the sky. The auroras, luminous rivers of green, red, and violet, were seen not as electromagnetic phenomena, but as celestial warnings. The Norse called them the Bifrost, a bridge between worlds. The Chinese recorded dragons of fire moving through the heavens. The Inuits of the Arctic told of spirits playing across the horizon. What they could not know was that these lights marked the breathing of the planet's magnetic heart. When the auroras expanded far from the poles, something was stirring within the Earth. During a reversal, the sky itself would seem transformed. Auroral curtains might ripple across the tropics. The night would shimmer like dawn. Compass directions would lose meaning. Migratory animals, birds, whales, and turtles would lose their invisible maps, thrown into confusion. And beneath the surface, currents of molten iron would continue to churn, rewriting the geometry of the planet's magnetic soul. The geological record shows that reversals are often accompanied by other cataclysms, volcanic outbursts, rapid cooling or warming, and even mass extinctions. The correlation is too frequent to ignore. Some researchers suggest that when the magnetic field collapses, cosmic radiation penetrates deep into the atmosphere, altering climate chemistry. Others propose that shifts in Earth's core may destabilize the crust, triggering eruptions and earthquakes. Whatever the mechanism, the result is always the same. A world reshaped, ecosystems erased, and new species rising from the void. In 1859, a much smaller event gave humanity a glimpse of what such forces can do. The Carrington event, the largest solar storm ever recorded, struck Earth with enough energy to set telegraph wires on fire and fill the skies with auroras visible near the equator. If a storm of that magnitude struck today, with satellites, power grids, and the internet woven into every corner of civilization, the result would be unimaginable. But during a weakened magnetic field, such storms would be magnified, their reach far greater, their consequences far worse. Some thinkers have begun to see these magnetic cycles not as random, but as part of the same cosmic rhythm that drives the floods, fires, and ice ages, an internal gear in the planet's great clock. The geomagnetic heartbeat may rise and fall in resonance with solar activity and the motions of the Earth's orbit. When the sun grows volatile and the field weakens, the system resets, a synchronization between star and planet that has repeated for eons. Perhaps the ancients sensed this connection. In Egyptian temples, priests aligned obelisks to the solstices, not just to mark time, but to honor the balance between heaven and earth. In Sumer, records speak of the gods turning the poles of the earth. In the Vedic hymns of India, it is said that the world trembles when the directions are reversed. These were poetic descriptions of magnetic inversion, mythic language for a real observable force. Today, we measure what they could only describe. We track the magnetic drift with satellites, we chart anomalies, we model the invisible lines of force that weave through space. And still, despite all our precision, we stand before the same mystery. The Earth's heart beats, but we do not know why it changes rhythm. We can only listen, record, and wait. When the next inversion comes, whether in 100 years or 1,000, it will not be an apocalypse, but a transformation. Some species will perish, others will adapt. Our machines will falter, new systems will emerge. The sky will shimmer in colors no one alive has ever seen, and somewhere, deep within the molten dark, the planet will turn once more, reversing, resetting, remembering. Because the magnetic field is not merely a shield, it is memory in motion, the living record of a world that never stops changing. And when it flips again, the Earth will do what it has always done, erase, renew, and begin the next chapter in its endless cycle of cataclysms. Every heartbeat of life on Earth begins with the sun. Its light fuels the oceans, breathes through the forests, and warms the blood of every creature that has ever lived. But the same star that gives us life can also take it away. For the ancients, this duality was never in question. The sun was both creator and destroyer, the radiant god that could bless or annihilate with equal power. Modern science confirms what myth has long whispered. The sun is not constant. It is a restless, boiling sphere of plasma, seething with magnetic storms. Beneath its golden surface, rivers of energy twist and collide, creating loops of fire the size of worlds. When those loops snap, they unleash solar flares, colossal eruptions of charged particles that race across space at nearly the speed of light. When the Earth lies in their path, the invisible hand of the sun reaches out and changes everything. Every 11 years, the sun completes a cycle of magnetic reversal. During solar maximum, its surface erupts with flares and dark sunspots, the scars of magnetic turbulence. The energy released in a single flare can equal the detonation of billions of nuclear bombs. When these storms strike Earth, they disturb our planet's magnetosphere, compressing it, twisting it, and sometimes tearing through it entirely. Auroras blossom across the sky, satellites flicker, and the power grids hum with invisible strain. Yet what we have witnessed in modern times are only small ripples compared to what the sun has done before. In 1859, the Carrington event gave humanity a glimpse of solar wrath. A flare of unimaginable brightness erupted from the sun's surface, followed by a coronal mass ejection. 1 billion tons of charged plasma hurled toward Earth. When it struck, telegraph lines caught fire, compasses spun. The sky over Cuba and Hawaii blazed with auroras. People awoke in the night thinking dawn had come. If such an event occurred today, it would devastate modern civilization. Satellites destroyed, power grids melted, communications gone. Yet even the Carrington event was mild compared to the storms that the Earth has endured across its long history. Tree rings and ice cores hold the record of these ancient tempests. In the year 774 CE, a sudden spike in carbon-14 levels marked a solar storm 100 times stronger than Carrington. Similar traces appear in 993 CE and deeper still in layers dating back millennia. Scientists now call them Miyake events, moments when the sun unleashed bursts of radiation so intense they left scars in the chemistry of the planet itself. What caused them remains a mystery. Were they singular superflares, or the product of cycles longer than the familiar 11-year rhythm? Some suspect that the sun follows a hidden clock of its own, a grand solar heartbeat that peaks every 12,000 years, in eerie synchrony with Earth's other cataclysms. The physics of these outbursts are staggering. During a superflare, the sun's magnetic field twists upon itself like a coiled spring. When it releases, the explosion can outshine the entire galaxy for minutes. Streams of high-energy protons tear through space, ionizing everything they touch. For Earth, such an encounter would strip parts of the atmosphere, ignite global auroras, and perhaps trigger cascading electrical failures that would end the digital age overnight. But beyond the machines, beyond technology, lies a deeper consequence: climate itself. When the sun enters prolonged instability, as it did during the Maunder minimum of the 17th century, the entire planet responds. For 70 years, sunspots vanished almost completely, and the world slipped into what historians call the Little Ice Age. Rivers froze, harvests failed, and empires fell. Conversely, during periods of heightened solar output, glaciers retreat, storms intensify, and deserts expand. The sun is not merely a background actor in Earth's climate, it is the conductor of every note. Some researchers suggest that the great catastrophes of prehistory, floods, extinctions, and magnetic shifts, may all align with solar hyperactivity. When the field of the sun tangles with that of the Earth, electric currents surge through the atmosphere and crust. Lightning storms become apocalyptic. Volcanoes awaken. The fragile balance of the biosphere breaks. From the sun's perspective, these are natural adjustments, rhythmic pulses in a stellar lifetime. But to us, they are the hand of fire that turns the clock of catastrophe. Ancient civilizations knew this hand well. In Egypt, the sun was Ra, the eye of the heavens that travelled through the underworld each night to be reborn at dawn. When it grew angry, it sent its daughter Sekhmet to scorch the earth. In Sumer, the same power was called Utu, or Shamash, the judge who watched from the sky and punished with flame. The Vedas speak of Surya's chariot drawing near to the world, its light unbearable. Even the Christian revelation ends with the sun turning black and the heavens trembling. Across every culture, the message is the same. The sun's blessing can become its curse. Today, we study the sun with fleets of spacecraft, the Parker Solar Probe diving into its corona, the Solar Dynamics Observatory mapping its magnetic storms, the satellites that watch its every flicker. Yet all our knowledge cannot stop what the sun chooses to do. It is the ultimate metronome of the solar system, keeping time in plasma and light. When it grows restless, every world feels its anger. As the next solar maximum approaches, the signs are already visible. Sunspots multiply, flares intensify, satellites blink. Scientists warn that we are entering one of the most active phases in centuries. If the Earth's magnetic field continues to weaken, as it has been, our protection will be thinner than ever before. A perfect storm, magnetic inversion below, solar fire above, could ignite the next great reset. Perhaps that is how the last civilization fell, not by war or plague, but by light itself. A pulse from the star they worshipped, sweeping across the sky, erasing their memory in a single flash. And when the world quieted again, the survivors began to rebuild, watching the sun with reverence and fear, whispering stories that would one day become myth. The sun has never been our enemy. It is the rhythm of our existence, the luminous pendulum that marks each age. When it burns too fiercely, the world contracts. When it softens, life expands. The cycle is eternal. The clock keeps turning, and somewhere, beyond all science and all belief, the sun waits to strike again. Not in anger, but in the simple, unending rhythm of creation and destruction. Long before telescopes or satellites, before the concept of science existed, ancient people watched the heavens with an intensity that modern humanity has forgotten. To them, the sky was not distant, it was alive. Every star had meaning, every planet a role, every sunrise a message. Across the world, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Central America, the ancients measured the rhythm of the heavens as if they were listening for something, as if they were trying to remember. Modern scholars often describe their monuments as temples of religion, but perhaps they were something more, instruments of time, built not to worship gods, but to track the clock of cataclysms. In stone, in myth, and in mathematics, they recorded a secret we are only beginning to rediscover: that the earth itself moves to a grand cosmic rhythm, and that every few thousand years the cycle resets. In the highlands of southern Mexico, the Maya built pyramids aligned with the movements of Venus and the sun. Their calendar, the long count, stretches backward and forward for thousands of years, structured not as a linear timeline, but as an infinite loop. Each era, or Baktun, ends with destruction and rebirth. The last recorded transition, according to Mayan inscriptions, marked the close of a great cycle of 5,125 years, part of a far greater pattern that multiplies outward into the tens of thousands. The Maya did not fear the end. They prepared for renewal. They believed that every age must die so the next could begin. In the distant east, the Hindu sages of India spoke of the yugas, vast epochs of time that unfold in repeating cycles. The Satya Yuga, the golden age of purity and truth, is followed by the Treta, Dvapara, and finally the Kali Yuga, the dark age, when ignorance reigns and catastrophe cleanses the world. Each complete cycle lasts 4,220,000 years, and within it are smaller subcycles, smaller ticks of the same cosmic clock. Even today, the Yuga system mirrors the precessional movement of Earth's axis, roughly 25,120 years per full rotation, divided into 4 quadrants of rise and fall. It is as if ancient astronomers encoded the geometry of the heavens into myth, transforming celestial mechanics into moral allegory. To the Sumerians, the oldest known civilization, time itself descended from the stars. In their tablets they wrote, "When kingship descended from heaven, it was in Eridu, Akht." The Sumerian king list records rulers who reigned not for years or centuries, but for tens of thousands of years each, until the line ends abruptly with one chilling phrase, "Then the flood swept over." To modern readers, the numbers seem impossible, but perhaps they were not meant as lifespans of men, but as cycles, great spans of time measured by the movement of planets, or even by the return of a celestial body the Sumerians called Nibiru, the crossing star. Whether real or symbolic, the message remains the same. Civilizations rise under the same sky and fall when the heavens change. In Egypt, the priests of Heliopolis spoke of Zep Tepi, the first time, a golden era before the deluge, when gods walked the earth and the stars were in perfect order. Every temple, every pyramid, every obelisk was built to mirror that lost alignment. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not just a tomb, it is a clock, aligned to true north, to the cardinal points, and to the belt of Orion. Even today, it remains more precise than any modern compass. Within its proportions lie astronomical constants, the precession of the equinoxes, the length of the solar year, and the curvature of the planet itself. The builders were not guessing, they knew. Across the sea, the Dogon tribe of West Africa speak of a time when their ancestors were visited by beings from the star Sirius, long before the star's invisible companion, Sirius B, was discovered by modern telescopes. Their knowledge of orbital periods and stellar motion suggests a legacy of memory far older than recorded history. Whether mythic or inherited from a forgotten civilization, the Dogon story fits a global pattern. Fragments of advanced understanding carried through the flood of time. At the heart of all these traditions lies one theme: repetition. The ancients saw the world not as a straight line, but as a wheel. Time was not something that moved forward, but something that turned, each revolution bringing both destruction and rebirth. They watched the sky to know when the wheel would turn again. The Maya counted Venus cycles. The Egyptians tracked the heliacal rising of Sirius. The Sumerians watched the paths of Jupiter and Mars. All these celestial markers, separated by thousands of miles and languages, point toward a single purpose: to predict the return of catastrophe. Even in the myths of the Greeks, we find echoes of this warning. Plato wrote that the earth periodically pours out its contents upon itself, drowning cities and civilizations, leaving only those on high ground to remember. He called these intervals the great years, governed by the motions of the heavens. To him, Atlantis was not fiction, but memory, a record of the last time the cycle turned. Some researchers have suggested that ancient structures were built to survive the very cataclysms they predicted. Massive megaliths, Baalbek, Sacsayhuaman, Pumapunku, constructed from stones weighing hundreds of tons, seem designed to endure earthquakes, floods, and even fire from the sky. Their builders may have known that time itself is fragile and that only stone could carry their message into the next world. But time erodes everything. The languages fade, the symbols fracture, and we forget how to read the message carved into the bones of the earth. Modern science calls these monuments primitive, yet we, with all our technology, cannot move the stones they lifted, nor explain the astronomical precision they achieved. What if their purpose was not power or worship, but memory, a way to say, "We were here before"? beware the turning of the clock. When you stand beneath the stars at night, you see what they saw, a sky that never stops moving. The same constellations that guided their calendars now drift slowly, degree by degree, in a 26,000-year procession. To the ancients, that motion was sacred. Each star's position foretold where humanity stood within the cosmic cycle, rising, falling, or approaching the edge once more. Perhaps they built their monuments as alarms, great stone timekeepers ringing across the ages. Each pyramid, each temple, each myth, a note in a forgotten symphony meant to remind us that the heavens repeat themselves, and that when they do, so will the earth. The ancients did not forget. They encoded the truth in architecture, in ritual, in story, hoping that one day, when the cycle turned again, someone would listen. The question now is whether we still can. Every continent carries ruins that do not belong to its own history. Stones too old, too precise, too silent to fit the story we are told. They rise from jungles, from deserts, from beneath the sea, as if the earth itself is remembering something it once buried. Across these remnants, the same question lingers. Were there civilizations before us? Empires erased not by myth, but by time. For the ancients, this was not a mystery. They spoke openly of worlds that came before. In Greece, Plato recorded the story of Atlantis, a great island civilization that flourished beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. According to his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, Atlantis was a realm of immense power and beauty, whose kings ruled over lands as far as Egypt and Italy. But in a single night and day of misfortune, the island sank beneath the sea. For centuries, historians dismissed it as allegory, yet Plato was precise. He named locations, measurements, even the order in which the sea swallowed the land. He claimed that the story came from Egyptian priests who remembered the flood not as legend, but as record. Modern discoveries have begun to blur the line between myth and memory. Off the coast of Spain, researchers have found circular formations buried under layers of sediment, matching Plato's description of concentric canals. In the Caribbean, sonar has revealed straight avenues and right-angled structures hidden beneath the sand. Near the Bahamas, the Bimini Road stretches for nearly a kilometre along the ocean floor, built of massive limestone blocks that look too deliberate to be natural. Each discovery is controversial, yet together they hint at a forgotten civilization that once spanned the Atlantic world. A civilization that may have perished in the same cataclysm that ended the Ice Age. Far to the east, another legend speaks of a continent that vanished, Mu, the lost land of the Pacific. In Polynesian, Japanese, and Mesoamerican traditions, there are stories of ancestral kingdoms drowned by the sea, their survivors scattered to distant islands. The ancient temples of Nan Madol in Micronesia, built of massive basalt columns, seem to echo those legends, floating on artificial platforms, silent and abandoned. In the myths of Central America, the god-king Quetzalcoatl is said to have come from the east after a flood, bringing knowledge of the stars. Across the ocean, the people of Easter Island carved colossal heads facing the horizon, as if watching for a home that never returned. The story repeats again in the Indian Ocean. Tamil legends describe Kumari Kandam, a vast southern land that once connected India, Africa, and Australia, now submerged beneath the sea. In the Andaman Islands, coral ridges form terraces that mirror the shape of lost shorelines. Off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni, divers have found stepped platforms and corridors carved from solid rock, descending into the depths like the streets of a sunken city. Some geologists argue they are natural formations, yet others note tool marks, right angles, and patterns too consistent to be coincidence. Across the world, from the Caribbean to the Pacific, the same pattern emerges. Ruins that predate recorded civilization, aligned with celestial precision, built from stones so immense they defy explanation. The Great Pyramid of Giza, long thought to be the oldest, is now joined by older enigmas. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built 11,000 years ago, before writing, agriculture, or the wheel. Its builders carved 20-ton pillars with images of animals that no longer existed, then deliberately buried the entire complex beneath layers of earth, as if preserving it for the future. What were they hiding it from? To some researchers, these sites are fragments of a forgotten global culture, one that flourished during the last warm period before the Great Flood. Perhaps it was not a single empire, but a network of knowledge, linked by trade and sky. The similarities between the pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, and the temples of the Americas may not be coincidence. They share geometry, symbolism, and orientation, all pointing to the stars. The same constellations, Orion, Sirius, and the Pleiades, appear again and again in the myths of cultures separated by oceans, as if all were remembering the same night sky, the same beginning before the waters came. Geology supports the possibility. Around 12,000 years ago, sea levels rose by more than 120 meters. Entire continental shelves vanished. The Persian Gulf, once a fertile valley, flooded and became the sea we know. The Sunda Shelf, connecting Southeast Asia to Australia, disappeared under the Indian Ocean. The Doggerland Plains between Britain and Europe sank beneath the North Sea. Millions of square miles of habitable land were lost. If civilizations had existed on those coasts, their ruins would now lie buried under hundreds of feet of water, invisible to history, but not to the earth. The survivors, scattered across new islands and continents, carried fragments of their knowledge with them. In Sumer, that memory became the story of divine kings who brought civilization from the sea. In Egypt, it was the legend of Thoth, the god who restored order after chaos. In South America, Viracocha rose from Lake Titicaca to teach agriculture, astronomy, and stone building to a people who had forgotten. The gods of these myths were not gods at all. They were messengers of memory, carrying the flame of a world that had burned. If the ancients understood the cycle of destruction, perhaps they also understood the necessity of rebirth. Their stories of lost lands were not simply laments for what was gone, but warnings for what would come again. Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, Kumari Kandam, different names for the same truth, that civilization is not the first light to shine on this planet, nor will it be the last. Each age believes itself immortal until the clock turns. Then the sea rises, the stars shift, and the story begins anew. Beneath the ocean's silence, the memory of these worlds still lingers. The sonar maps, the magnetic anomalies, the megaliths resting under coral, all are fragments of the same forgotten sentence. The earth remembers, even when we do not. And when the tide of time recedes again, perhaps the next civilization will find our own cities buried in silt and sand, and wonder if the legends of their ancestors, of a world before the flood, were true after all, because the cycle never ends. The sea that erases also reveals. The same waves that drowned Atlantis will one day uncover it, and when they do, the ruins will tell the story not of one lost civilization, but of the rhythm that governs them all. The endless turning of Earth's forgotten clock. Every culture that ever looked to the heavens noticed something. The stars were not fixed. Night after night, year after year, the constellations drifted, imperceptibly but undeniably. The ancients called it the Great Year, the slow turning of the heavens. They measured it in ages, each ruled by a different constellation, each marking a new era in the life of the world. To them, this slow celestial dance was not just a calendar. It was the heartbeat of the cosmos, a pattern so vast that entire civilizations rose and fell within a single tick. Today we call this motion the precession of the equinoxes, the gradual wobble of Earth's axis as it traces a circle through the sky every 25,120 years. The cause is purely mechanical. the gravitational pull of the sun and moon on Earth's equatorial bulge, but to ancient astronomers it was divine. The slow shift of the stars was the turning of the cosmic wheel itself, and across continents, from Egypt to India to the Andes, they built their temples and myths to align with this celestial rhythm, marking the ages like chapters in a universal story. When the sun rose in the constellation of Leo, they said it was the Age of Lions, a time of fire, power, and creation. In Taurus, the Age of the Bull, came fertility, agriculture, and the worship of horned gods. Then Gemini, the twins, brought duality and division. Aries, the ram, brought war and empire. Pisces, the fish, ushered in faith and sacrifice. And now, as the sun slowly moves into Aquarius, the water-bearer, we stand again at the threshold. Between ages, between worlds, between cycles. To the ancients, these transitions were not symbolic. They were catastrophic. Every 12,000 to 13,000 years, half a precessional cycle, the orientation of Earth's axis brings the planet into new alignments with cosmic forces. Different radiation fields, galactic dust clouds, gravitational tides. When the cycle turns, the balance between the Earth and the Sun shifts. Climate changes. The magnetic field weakens. The clock resets. Modern astronomy is beginning to see what the ancients already knew. The solar system does not travel through empty space. It moves through the Milky Way like a ship through waves, bobbing above and below the galactic plane in a cycle that takes about 26,000 years. Each time it crosses the dense midplane of the galaxy, it encounters increased cosmic radiation and interstellar dust. This can alter the energy input to the Sun, destabilizing its magnetic cycles. Some researchers believe this galactic rhythm could explain the periodic bursts of solar activity, comet impacts, and climate shifts recorded in Earth's history. The heavens are not silent. They breathe, and when they exhale, worlds change. Ancient monuments may have been built to record this breath. At Nabta Playa in the Egyptian desert, a ring of megaliths aligns with the rising of Orion's belt and Sirius, the same stars that guided the construction of the pyramids thousands of years later. In Angkor Wat, Cambodia, the towers map the constellation Draco, frozen at the precise position it held 12,000 years ago. The temples of Teotihuacan in Mexico are arranged along a grid that mirrors the planets of the solar system. These structures were not built at random. They were observatories, instruments of stone tuned to the sky, recording the slow drift of the stars and the timing of the next cosmic turn. In India, the Vedic rishis encoded the same pattern in myth. They described the ages of humanity, or yugas, each lasting thousands of years, tied to the positions of the sun and stars. In their view, humanity ascends toward enlightenment as Earth approaches one point in its precessional path, and descends into darkness as it moves away, an endless oscillation between awakening and amnesia. The cycle was not just astronomical, but spiritual. The cosmos itself was alive, and its rhythms were reflected in the rise and fall of human consciousness. The Greeks inherited this cosmic vision. Plato wrote that the perfect year, when all the celestial bodies returned to their starting points, marked the end of one age and the beginning of another. The Stoics called it the ekpyrosis, the world fire, when the heavens realign and the cosmos renews itself in flame. In their philosophy, the stars themselves carried within them the memory of destruction. When the constellations took their destined positions, the earth would burn, and from its ashes a new cycle would begin. Even in the modern era, science echoes their insight. The pattern of ice ages, roughly every 100,000 and 12,000 years, mirrors these celestial cycles. The timing of comet impacts and solar flare events corresponds with changes in the solar system's orientation to the galactic center. The movement of our planet through space is not smooth or random. It is rhythmic, like the swinging of a pendulum. And with every swing, energy builds until it releases. Perhaps that is why so many ancient cultures treated the stars not as distant fires, but as living entities, guides, guardians, and judges. They believed the heavens could foretell catastrophe because catastrophe itself was written in their motion. To them, astrology was not superstition, it was survival. If they could read the sky's language, they could prepare for the next turning of the wheel. And yet, in our age of science, we have stopped reading. We treat the stars as scenery, not as the gears of a greater machine. We measure, but we no longer feel. The ancients may have lacked our instruments, but they possessed something we have lost: patience. They watched not for days or decades, but for centuries, tracing slow changes that only generations could perceive. In doing so, they saw the pattern we have forgotten. Perhaps that is why their monuments endure. Stone does not forget as easily as flesh. When the next alignment comes, when the poles shift and the stars drift into their fated positions, those who stand upon the ruins may finally understand what their ancestors tried to say: that the sky itself keeps time, and that every great cataclysm is only the echo of a larger movement above. The cycle turns. The constellations drift. The equinox slides across the heavens, and somewhere, in the quiet rhythm of space, the hands of the cosmic clock prepare to strike again. The ancients saw it coming once before and left their warnings carved in stars. Whether we choose to listen will decide how the next age begins. The story of Earth has never been linear. It moves in cycles: creation and collapse, flood and fire, silence and renewal. For ages these rhythms were hidden beneath myth, but now science begins to hear the same pulse. Magnetic fields weaken, climates shift, the sun grows restless, and all signs point to one truth: the clock of the Earth is turning again. The planet's magnetic field, our invisible shield, is faltering. The North Pole drifts towards Siberia faster than at any time in recorded history, while the South Atlantic anomaly widens, allowing radiation to pierce the upper atmosphere. Satellites flicker, compasses deviate. Deep within the molten core, the magnetic currents that shape our world twist and stutter. It is as though the planet's heart is missing a beat. Above us, the sun burns with unusual fury. Each new solar cycle erupts with greater force. Massive flares and coronal storms hurled into space, sometimes directly toward Earth. When these waves of plasma meet our weakening magnetic shield, auroras bloom across unexpected skies, power grids hum, and communication systems tremble. The last time such storms struck with full intensity, telegraphs burst into flame. If it happened now, the global network that sustains modern life could fall silent in minutes. The climate too echoes the instability. Glaciers retreat, oceans swell, seasons lose their rhythm. The Arctic warms faster than the rest of the planet, altering currents that have kept balance for millennia. The Gulf Stream slows, polar vortexes fracture, drought and flood trade places. Scientists once saw these as isolated symptoms, but they may be part of the same pattern that has shaped the planet's history for millions of years. A pattern of sudden resets roughly every 12 to 13,000 years. Beneath our feet the Earth stirs. Dormant volcanoes awaken. Earthquakes cluster along ancient scars. The ground moves with the faint restlessness of a world preparing to shift. In deep time, such movements always accompany transition. The planet breathes through destruction, releasing pressure, cleansing imbalance, beginning anew. Even the sky joins the rhythm. Comets from the outer dark return in long orbits, brushing near Earth as they have before every great age. Meteor showers intensify, the solar system passing again through ancient streams of dust, the same cosmic rivers that may once have rained fire upon the Ice Age world. To us, it seems coincidence. To the Earth, it is routine, the turning of its forgotten clock. The ancients understood this better than we do. They watched the heavens not with curiosity, but with remembrance. The Maya counted long cycles of creation and destruction. The Vedas described the rise and fall of ages, yugas of gold, silver, bronze, and iron, ending always in renewal. The Hopi spoke of worlds purified by flood and fire, while the Egyptians remembered Zep Tepi, the first time, when the stars realigned and the world began again. They were not predicting apocalypse. They were preserving memory. Modern civilization has lost that memory. We have built our cities on coastlines that the sea will reclaim. We have woven our existence through fragile networks of electricity and orbiting satellites. We live as if the Earth is stable, as if the sky is safe. But history, geology, and myth whisper otherwise. The last time the planet's balance broke, continents drowned and 1,000 species vanished. Yet life endured, smaller, humbler, reborn. The coming reset will not begin with a single disaster. It will unfold as a sequence of events, each echoing the next, a solar flare, a blackout, a shift in weather patterns, a silence in the magnetic field. Step by step, the old equilibrium will dissolve and a new one will form. To the Earth, this is renewal. To us, it will feel like the end. But the cycle is not punishment, it is rhythm. The flood cleanses, the fire transforms, the ice preserves. Every civilization that rises does so upon the ruins of one before. The ancients built their monuments not to defy time, but to leave messages through it. Pyramids aligned with the stars, temples timed to the solstice, all reminders that we have been here before. Perhaps what they feared most was not destruction, but forgetting. Because forgetting is the true extinction. When humanity forgets the rhythm of the Earth, we mistake the reset for chaos instead of renewal. Each age begins again with amnesia, until memory returns in myth and the cycle is understood once more. Our technology is fragile compared to stone. A single solar storm could erase the data of centuries. And yet memory endures in other forms, in stories, in art, in the human impulse to wonder. Every generation that looks up at the sky continues the lineage of remembrance. The next reset may already have begun. The planet's pulse grows louder and the signs multiply. But awareness is not fear. To remember the cycle is to prepare, not through panic, but through perspective. The ancients faced their resets with reverence. They built for endurance, not convenience. They measured their lives by the stars, not by profit. Perhaps it is time to learn from them again. Because one day, when the seas rise and the stars shift and our monuments crumble, the next world will walk upon our ruins. They will find fragments of who we were. Satellites fallen like new constellations. Stone cities buried in silt, stories encoded in myth. And they will wonder, as we do now, what destroyed the world that came before. If this story speaks to you, if you believe that our past holds the key to our future, join us as we uncover it, layer by layer, age by age. Subscribe, share the knowledge, keep the memory alive. Because somewhere beneath our feet and far above our heads, the clock is already moving.